Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button, and if you have any opinions at all you would like to share, leave them down in the comment section. Aminé, Limbo. Aminé, American rapper, singer, songwriter, XXL freshman. Since that feature on the XXL list, he's been one of the most exciting faces in the rap game in modern times with the release of his 1.5 mixtape in 2018. While I did think that project was a little bit sleepy, I still visit his debut album Good For You pretty often. It was one of my favorite rap albums of that year, which I also reviewed way back in the day. If you're curious, I will leave a link in the corner for you to go check that out. But now we're here at his sophomore album, and pretty highly anticipated as well, Limbo. So did this match the good standards Aminé's music has set? Let's find out as I review this album track by track. We'll start off with the singles, with there being 3 of them. The first one being Shimmy, which unfortunately doesn't do all that much for me. I get so much J. Cole influence from this track, and that really transitions into how he's rapping. While it does have a good amount of flair, it's pretty stagnant for the most part. Certainly not the most exciting lead-off single. The instrumental is also a little bit drab, but I do like the retro-sounding drum work and the background vocals. But that's really all there is. Lyrically, it's pretty braggadocious, mainly about how it's his year, almost like a comebacks type of single. Meh, not my favorite from his. I can pass on this one. The second single, Riri, on the complete opposite end, is a much better single in my opinion. This is the Aminé I know and enjoyed, and the main thing being how he's working much more of his singing voice on this cut, which I always thought was pretty damn solid. The instrumental is also pretty different, but the combination of this heavy distorted bass and the light synth work, it can be a little bit awkward, but it clicked with me rather quickly. Lyrically, it's a bit more of a relationship cut, about this girl who thinks she's the best thing in the world, but getting into it with her, he realizes that's not the case. Great song, I enjoy it. And the third and final single, Compensating with Young Thug, is the other single I kinda fell in love with. The instrumental is really infectious, the pounding drum work and the perky synth rather far in the back. And while I may not be the biggest fan of both Aminé's and Young Thug's falsetto game here, both have really good verses and show how well they can ride a groove. Also, I'm sorry, but I have to commend that refrain. Aminé's deeper voice just fits in effortlessly. Lyrically, it's about remembering past relationships that failed and trying to compensate for that. Fantastic song, and not too bad for a singles run. Let's see how the rest of the album compares. Now for the rest of the tracks. The opener, Burden, gives me a lot of newer Earl Sweatshirt vibe with its instrumental, and the shrill screaming along with the jazz-esque guitar playing, but alongside a more orthodox flow. I've also heard some comparisons to some 2000s jazzy, almost Kanye stuff, and I can see that as well. Aminé definitely doesn't have the most engaging flow here, but his presence is still attention-grabbing like it's almost always been. And lyrically, it's pretty hard-hitting, about racism issues in America. If this opener is meant to attract, then it does a damn good job. Good song. Woodlawn immediately reassures me that Aminé hasn't lost that flavor that made his debut album so enjoyable. While the instrumental may not be as fun or experimental or even that unique, I do have a really soft spot for flutes and beats, and this is no exception when paired with the percussion that take a little bit more of a backseat approach to previously mentioned flutes. Aminé's vocals here as well are pretty solid, again retaining a solid melody, great groove as he's rapping about coming from humble beginnings, and with the title being the name of the park of his hometown. Fantastic song, a personal favorite of mine here. Kobe is a short 40-second interlude just saying how much of an effect the death of Kobe Bryant had, and how it affected his maturity and his outlook on life. I mean, it's a sweet interlude, nothing much else here to say. Roots featuring Jid and Charlie Wilson is a track I wish I liked a lot more. Aminé is probably the most lacking presence on the song. Yet again, his energy isn't the problem. He's always been engaging in that regard, but the flow is just so exhausting, albeit prominent, it doesn't suit him at all on his verse. The instrumental probably holds this back the most for me. I've never been entranced by these luxurious, soulful, yet very slow instrumentals like I know a lot of other critics have. It just weighs the track down for me. The chorus has a nice sing-along attribute to it, and of course this is Jid's wheelhouse. He takes control of the spotlight on his verse, flowing incredibly well. That outro is pretty beautiful though, and lyrically it's wonderfully poetic, using the term roots as heritage, like a family tree, and then comparing it to the actual roots of a plant. Not a bad song, but I feel like it should have done more for me. Cant Decide takes this album in a bit of a different direction stylistically, featuring a Latin twist with the plucky guitar strumming and the clicky percussion. There is still the solid heavy bass work here, And Aminé sounds wonderful over this beat yet again. His technical ability on a beat has improved a lot. And that chorus, while a little bit of an awkward first impression, has a nice melody, really accentuating the chill vibe the tune gives off. Lyrically, it's about this relationship and how he doesn't know what to do with this girl, what she truly wants. Great song, worth a listen. Pressure in My Palms featuring Slow Tie and Vince Staples is the official banger of this album. That hook is pretty ominous with its vocal effects, the skittering trap drums, and the deep bass and synth in the background. Aminé's got much more of a vicious attitude on this track on his 2 verses. But it does suit this beat pretty well, and why is Slow Tie such a non-presence here? He only has 4 bars, then leaves for the rest of the track. Why? Anyway, Vince Staples handles the next verse after Slow Tie, and I've always had a soft spot for Vince's rapping. It's so captivating to hear. And lyrically, it's very much a posse, gang song, very braggadocious, very street and very thug. And I adore the track. This is my recommendation. Easy featuring Summer Walker, unsurprisingly, is a lot more of a sultry R&B track, and this is probably one of my least favorites here. For one, and I know I've said this before, Summer Walker has never really done anything for me. Her voice has always seemed pretty flat, and her and Aminé have very little chemistry on here. Speaking of Aminé, he's extremely vocally expressive here, in falsetto for the entire chorus, practically driving the whole thing. It feels very off. The speed is also extremely stagnant. Not that that would normally be a problem, but with how slow it is and how little is done with it regarding the vocalists, it just feels like a slog of a track as they're singing about how love isn't easy. Yeah, this one's an easy skip. Mama is the typical retrospective emotional song that is present on a good majority of these types of rap albums, and just like most of them, it's pretty damn good. Aminé's vocals and flow are front and center here, and they're stellar. The flow is tight even when he dips into the falsetto range. And this instrumental is pretty sweet. I do like the soul-inspired background vocals combined with the piano, and the light yet dense percussion. Lyrically, I did already kind of mention it, just about loving his mama, who helped him through all the tough times, and now that he's big and he's got money, he's gonna treat her. Great song, definitely a standout. Becky is the track on this album that really doesn't stand out in any way to me. Of course, aside from the fairly well-written lyrics about racial issues, the bizarre looks he gets for being in a relationship with a white girl. Everything else, however, is a bit standard. The falsettos don't really fit in on this track. I think in tandem with the lyrics, they work much better with how the chorus is sung, almost tired and fed up. The falsettos clash quite a bit. The instrumental as a whole is fairly generic, just a standard R&B trap beat with some higher pitched synths and deep percussion. While I do enjoy the message a lot, nothing else is really backed up to match that. Shame. Fetus featuring Injury Reserve opens up and continues with these blaring synth that reminds me of that collaboration between Denzel Curry and Slow Tie called Psycho, alongside some rather slow drum work, giving the song almost a haunting, ominous feeling to it. Richie's voice is probably the best here in my opinion. It's so grimy, but not aggressive. Very suitable for this beat, but there isn't really a bad verse here anyway. Lyrically, though, it's pretty poignant about future children, hopes, fears, and desires for them, but also how the woman in the relationship wants to properly plan for it and not want an accidental pregnancy. Great song, I enjoy it. And finally, the closer, My Reality, is a wonderfully suitable closer. The instrumental is pretty subtle, the percussion feels very genuine, almost like bongos, or that traditional acoustic drum that bands would use, alongside these lush, angelic ambient synths. Aminé's flow does seem a little bit too eccentric for this kind of instrumental. He chuckles a lot, gives some playful ad-libs, where this feels like it should be more of an introspective song, although lyrically it really shines, about how you gotta achieve your dreams and find that peace within yourself. Good closer, not a bad song to boot. Overall, I did enjoy this Aminé album, although not as much as I would have wanted to. The thing that made Good For You so damn powerful for me was the charisma, the youthfulness, and the variety of instrumentals. It just felt like a fun project, a house party, if you will. With this, it's still good, but it's grown up now. It's got a house, it's got a job. Sure, the beginning leg of this album was pretty solid, diverse, engaging, but that all kind of fell apart for this final leg. Despite the negative tangent I just went on there, I would still recommend this album. And I'm feeling a 7.5 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.